Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 151, which is called The Winner Is... ... And yeah, as was set up from last week's chapter, we have Zazie versus the Queen. But as we see, it's actually Zazie versus basically all of Norman's kind of lieutenant characters. It's still the focus remains on Zazie. He's the one who basically the others are backing up as, like, what was the marketing tagline, like humanity's greatest fighter or something like that. So they're definitely teasing the idea that something big is going on with Zazie, and we're going to learn something pretty important about him here, because the tease throughout this chapter is what is under the bag that he wears on his head, and it looks like next chapter we are going to get that reveal. And I like how they finally kind of go about kind of getting towards that reveal, in that he suddenly is a focused upon character for pretty much the first time in the entire series. So immediately there's these shots kind of focusing on like here are the shoes he's wearing. Here's the super close-up focus on like the eye hole of one of the bags, and then later on in the chapter we get like the tease of what he was like before he has this, his current outfit on. And then at the very end of the chapter, we get, of course, that the bag is like ripped in half effectively, that the bag is off, and we'll find out what's under the mask at this point. But the focus of the chapter is actually the tactics, the planning of Norman with regards to how he was going to tackle the Queen. Pretty much dealing with Jiren and the Queen was always going to be the most difficult part of the plan, and it seems to be working perfectly for him. So immediately, we get at the start of the chapter, Zazie walks in. Verk and Legra Valima are immediately wondering, like, who's that? Like, a human? What's going on here? But she's immediately taken by surprise by just how fast and deadly Zazie is, because he comes at her and pushes her back. He's so quick, he's so powerful. She's barely blocking these blows with his double swords. And now that her mask has been shattered, she is actually at risk. She just barely guards her eyes here. So she tries to fight back, of course, with her kind of deadly giant claws, but he just is relentless with his attacks. He's getting some cuts pretty close to her eyes on her face, but nothing quite landing just yet. And she begins to notice like just how challenging this is going to be. At this point, this is when we get Barbara and the other guy whose name I just never remember. Anyway, basically everyone except Vincent is kind of directly participating in the action, and even then Vincent is kind of right there in the action. So it's now 3-on-1 with Zazie leading the attack, and at this point we get the, I suppose, planning beforehand from Norman. You'll break out, then try to attack as quickly as possible, and the explanation here is effectively, this is how we deal with a stronger opponent. This is the tactics that we've learned from our experimentation. And this is it. Regeneration, mutation, the ability to reinforce their bodies. These abnormal abilities all display themselves through cellular division. Demons expend an enormous amount of energy. Experiments can't entirely replicate the conditions that we'll face, but when their expenditure goes past a certain threshold, their effectiveness in combat will plummet dramatically. Demons are living beings too. They have a limit. That they're specialized for really quick, sudden bursts that makes them pretty much unstoppable. But if you force them into a protracted battle and they aren't able to eat to replenish their strength, they will suffer because their incredible abilities use up a ton of energy. So that's what they're planning to do here. Norman says here to them, don't let them eat any of the meat, not even a single piece of the corpses. Don't give them any time to recover. Just keep attacking and attacking. That's who as humans will win this. And that's what we see. So Barbara and the other guy assisting Zazie here as they just relentlessly attack her, dodging her moves and just keeping her on the defensive. And Barbara notes that, her movement is really fast, but it's become more dull than before. She's severely exhausted, and they notice that even from watching the fight before in the ceiling, that they've noticed that using Jiren to exhaust her was a huge success of the plan. So Zazie charges in. He seems to be getting the advantage. The Queen looks to be really, really in trouble here. And she notes that that's exactly what they're doing. She is aware. She's not just like completely lost in this fight. She knows she needs to eat something, eat a piece of the corpses on the floor, and that she needs to be aware of how much energy she is actually using. And that she's trying to be as calm as possible and manage her own expenditure. But it's noted here, but with how exhausted she's getting to be, as long as we make sure to evenly distribute our offense and defense, we can take her head on. And the idea is that the other guy and Barbara are just going to protect Zazie's back so he can attack as effectively as possible. And it's during this panel where they both note Zazie can pull it off, he can do it, Zazie can do it. We get this flashback to, I suppose, like how close, I suppose, the two of them are to Zazie. And then a very interesting panel of a chained up Zazie, teasing what his face is like, and the fact that, you know, the reason he covers up and stuff like that is like there's something up with his face, and that his eyes, they're getting across the idea that they're almost just like these small pinholes, and they're like almost glowing. But we'll have to wait and see what exactly it is that they reveal. So yeah, Zazie continues to go in. The Queen begins to attack back, and in a sudden burst of energy, the Queen manages to actually stab Barbara. So Barbara looks to be completely out of action. She temporarily boosted her speed and got the advantage, even though Zazie was taken by surprise. She goes to eat Barbara, but Zazie throws his sword, cuts the Queen's arm off to save Barbara, and he gets furious. We see that he goes into this kind of like berserker mode and is about to lose the whole plan here by charging in. And the other guy's about to protect Zazie, trying to, you know, stop this because the Queen's arm is regenerating really, really quickly. But she's stopped. Her sudden quick attack is stopped. She has to just block the sword with her hand. And this is when it's revealed that the poison has been activated. And this is where we get like Vincent's role in the chapter here, that he has activated this poison. And we note that Iverk and the Queen's assistants are beginning to suffer from this poison. So it's been activated at this point. Outside we see that everyone is like reverting into kind of bestial like demons. And we get actually Sanju, Mujika, Dawn and Gilda, you know, talking, and they note that it started. And the explanation about this poison is this from Ray, I believe, is saying this. From what I've seen, it inhibits the regular cellular division cycle for demons. To put it in extremely simple terms, it destroys their ability to retain their special traits. A poison that forces them to regenerate. So the idea here for like the Queen is that it stopped her from being able to instantly like retract and extend her claws, and it's stopping like the regeneration, instant regeneration and stuff like that. So this is severely hindering anyone who suffers from it. And I suppose another one of the traits for most demons is just their ability to maintain their intelligence is also suffering. But the nobles, it's noted that it's working differently on them. Norman says that it won't work on every single demon, of course, and there'll be differences with how it works in individuals. In the worst case, it could possibly not be effective against the royalty who have consumed the cursed blood. But Vincent notes that it's worked. It worked outside of experiments. This is perfect. Don't the cells rampaging throughout your body feel terrible? So it seems to be working. Her claws, the best she can do is like it just makes them all kind of squiggly, so they're not particularly effective. So the Queen seems to be in huge trouble here as Zazie goes in for what seems to be the finishing blow. And this interesting sequence in the last couple of panels here, as basically Zazie's coming down, the Queen slices with what's left of her claws, and Zazie moves down so quickly that his head comes out of the bag, and she slices through the bag, and so a unmasked Zazie is apparently delivering the final blow on the Queen here. They still cover up his face, so we don't know what it is, but the setup for the final panel is, you know, a spray of blood. Go to hell, you monster. The end of their despair is ... So the question is, has Zazie been hit here? Has the Queen been hit here? What way exactly has this gone? So the setup here is either that the royal family is much more powerful than we knew, or they're actually going to have Zazie kill the queen here. I get the impression that it probably will be the reverse of what we think. I get the impression Zazie might have been killed here, and that the queen has some sort of a special thing going on. But I don't really know. They could go either way on this. I think the prediction is kind of a weird one in that there's still so much other stuff that needs to happen that like it feels like a bit weird to kill the queen now, when I think we need to keep someone alive, and I doubt it's going to be like Everk who's the person we keep alive. So I think there still needs to be a little bit more from the queen here. So I think either Zazie's getting hit here, or the other guy in the background is still running towards Zazie. Maybe he takes the blow or something like that for Zazie, and he gets some sort of a hitting against the queen. That, or Everk maybe puts himself in front of the queen. I could see something along those lines happening, where this final blow doesn't go as simply as we expect it to, basically. So yeah, I actually thought this was a pretty good chapter in that it was just really, really solid. It's the fight we expected. It's the plan being executed in the way we expected it to. And I thought the action and I thought the art was actually a bit back on track again, I think, here. It might have been the artist just getting used to, after a couple of chapters now, drawing Allegra Valima so much. But I thought it was much better looking this chapter than the last couple. So overall, I'm interested, giving time to, I suppose, Zazie over this chapter and the next one. Could be interesting. It depends what exactly they do here, because if they go too in depth, like it's basically the introduction plus, full story of Zazie, whereas it might be worth only revealing something of interest about him. Like, do we really need to go in depth on all of these Lambda experiment kind of kids, or what? There's a lot of play here, and I think the longer it goes on without focusing on like Emma and Ray and the main plot, the more frustrating it gets. But I still think it's really, really good stuff here. These are like the big kind of end of series type fights that we're kind of like looking towards. So it's definitely for me a very positive chapter. So yeah, I'm excited for next week to see what exactly the reveal is about Zazie, because I assume it has to be more than just the experiments have left him like deformed in some way in the face. I think with him, it probably has to be something like he's like hybrid demon human or something like that, or else he is part demon in some way. Like I feel that kind of has to be the way of it, because otherwise just him being deformed by the Lambda experiments, to me, doesn't quite have as much of an impact unless they go heavy into a big character arc for Zazie. I think it kind of works better that the reason he is so strong is because he has elements of demon in him, and that would help to explain a little bit more about the Lambdas as well. That's why they have these unique abilities, because it is demons experimenting on humans to implant like demon abilities within them, and that's sort of what we're seeing here, of like kind of regeneration, huge strength, max speed, stuff like that. That could be an interesting one if they get around to revealing that in the next chapter. Why they're so much better than like every other human. What were those experiments? Because I think we forget that the Lambda escape, like Norman being revealed to be alive, what he did all happen off screen. So there is still more to come on that. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's my thoughts on chapter 151. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the chapter. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.